In the cobbled streets of Florence, where wool merchants once traded under the shadow of medieval towers, there arose a family whose name would come to shape not only Italy, but the destiny of Europe itself. They were not kings at first, nor warriors, nor conquerors of lands. They were bankers, yet through coin and cunning, through marriage and murder, through art and ambition, the Medici became something more. The secret monarchs of Florence, the patrons of the Renaissance, the makers of popes, and the stirrers of war and peace across Christendom. For nearly 3 centuries, from the rise of Giovanni de' Medici in the early 1400s to the twilight of Anna Maria Luisa in the 1700s, their name meant both majesty and menace. This is their saga, the story of how a family of bankers became the very heartbeat of the Renaissance, and in doing so, rewrote history itself. The tale begins with Giovanni de' Medici, 1360 to 1429. A man of modest beginnings by noble standards, he built his fortune through the Medici Bank, which soon became the most powerful financial institution in Europe. His genius was simple. He lent money not only to merchants and princes, but also to the Pope. By making the Holy See dependent on Medici gold, Giovanni transformed his family from mere merchants into the bankers of God. But Giovanni was also cautious. Unlike later Medici, he avoided flaunting his wealth, keeping his ambitions masked behind humility. He secured the foundations of power quietly by arranging alliances, building networks of loyalty, and ensuring that the Medici name was both respected and feared. If Giovanni built the fortune, Cosimo de' Medici, 1389 to 1464, known as Cosimo the Elder, built the dynasty. Cosimo was not crowned, nor did he sit on a throne. Yet in Florence his word was law. He manipulated the Republic's councils, bribed opponents, and exiled rivals when persuasion failed. His enemies accused him of tyranny, but his supporters praised him as Pater Patria, the father of the fatherland. Cosimo's true genius lay in patronage. He understood that power was not just political, but cultural. He funded artists, architects, and thinkers. Brunelleschi, who raised the great dome of Florence's cathedral, Donatello, who carved lifelike saints and warriors, and scholars who revived the long-forgotten wisdom of Greece and Rome. Florence under Cosimo was no longer just a city, it was the cradle of the Renaissance. If Cosimo ruled with gold and subtlety, his grandson Lorenzo de' Medici, 1449 to 1492, ruled with brilliance and flair. Known to history as Lorenzo the Magnificent, he became the very embodiment of Renaissance Florence. A poet, diplomat, and patron of genius, Lorenzo gathered to his court names that would echo through eternity: Leonardo da Vinci, Botticelli, and a young sculptor named Michelangelo Buonarroti, whom Lorenzo raised almost like a son. Yet Lorenzo's life was not without peril. In 1478, his enemies struck in what became known as the Pazzi Conspiracy. During High Mass in the cathedral, assassins attacked. Lorenzo survived with only wounds, but his brother Giuliano was butchered at the altar. Lorenzo's vengeance was swift and ruthless. Conspirators were hanged from the windows of the Palazzo Vecchio, their corpses swinging above the crowds. Florence remained his, but the conspiracy revealed the danger of ruling without a crown. The Medici had power, but always in the shadows, always contested. The Medici influence did not stop in Florence. Through cunning marriages and careful maneuvering, they placed their blood on the papal throne itself. Giovanni de' Medici became Pope Leo X, 1513 to 1521, remembered both for his lavish spending and for the indulgences that provoked Martin Luther's Reformation. Later, Giulio de' Medici rose as Pope Clement VII, 1523 to 1534, whose reign saw the sack of Rome 1527 and the seismic break of Henry VIII from the Catholic Church. The irony was cruel. The Medici, who had made their fortune as bankers, helped fund the very splendor of Rome that would tear Western Christendom apart. The Medici's power in Florence waxed and waned. They were expelled more than once by Republican uprisings, only to return stronger. The turning point came in 1537, when Cosimo I de' Medici, a distant relative, seized control. Unlike his ancestors, Cosimo abandoned the pretense of republican rule. He became the first Duke of Florence, and later the first Grand Duke of Tuscany. Cosimo I built a centralized state, strengthened Florence's military, and married into European royalty, making the Medici a dynasty not just of bankers and patrons, but of crowned rulers. Though history often highlights the men, Medici women shaped dynasties across Europe. Catherine de' Medici, 1519 to 1589, became Queen of France, mother to 3 French kings, and the power behind the throne during the Wars of Religion. Marie de' Medici, 1575 to 1642, another Florentine princess, became Queen of France and regent for Louis XIII, commissioning masterpieces like Rubens' Marie de' Medici cycle. Through marriage and diplomacy, Medici blood flowed through Europe's royal houses, binding Florence's fate to that of France, Spain, and the Holy Roman Empire. By the 17th century, the Medici were no longer the daring innovators of old. Wealth had bred decadence, and the later dukes grew notorious for their extravagance, intrigues, and scandals. The last scion, Anna Maria Luisa de' Medici, 1667 to 1743, ensured the family's final legacy. With no heirs of her own, she negotiated the family pact, which bequeathed the Medici art collections to Florence. Thanks to her, treasures that might have been scattered across Europe remain in the Uffizi Gallery and Pitti Palace, drawing millions to Florence today. The Medici story is a saga of paradoxes. They ruled without crowns, yet became kings. They enriched the church, yet helped fracture it. They loved beauty, yet wielded cruelty. But above all, they transformed Florence into the beating heart of the Renaissance, a city whose art and architecture still astonish the world. Without the Medici, there may have been no Michelangelo, no Leonardo, no Golden Florence to inspire poets and painters for centuries to come. They were bankers, patrons, popes, queens, dukes, and dreamers. A family whose shadow still falls across Europe's culture and politics. In the end, the Medici were not just rulers of Florence, they were architects of modern history itself,